Good evening, everyone. Hope you had a good break. So, the tax, I think wherever we go, tax won't follow, will always follow. So, what we are going to discuss is the recent tax reforms and cost of modeling it. See, if you look at, over a decade and so, there has been several tax reforms, not only in India, across the globe. The tax reforms are, some of the structural tax reforms, as well as there have been reforms on the processes and the way the tax authorities communicate with the taxpayers. Uh, some of the tax reforms are very basic, as well as there are advanced level of tax reforms. With the tax reforms, the tax authorities have, use various analytical tools to to analyze the data that they get it from the various the institutions and the authorities. Uh, they have also automated their various processes which they used to do it manually earlier, and which now they are doing with the click of button. That brings a lot of efficiency to them, which means they have got a lot of more time to do our audits. Uh, These are some of, as an illustration, some of the digital reforms which has been taken over, which has been carried out in the Asia Pacific region by some of the authorities. Now, from here, what one can observe is, at a minimum, what has been transformed or reformed is the e-filings of be it a corporate, be it a GST, and the notices which is being issued in electronic formats. There are some countries who's also implemented the mobile platform. Let's talk about a little bit more about India. I think in India as well, we have seen several reforms. There are reforms in the structural as well as the processes. Structurally, we all know about the GST. It has been a good success, or some people would have a different perspective, but it's a very structural reform as far as the indirect tax is concerned. There has been several reforms now on the processes, like what we have is the faceless assessment or e-assessment, where now we don't have many people don't have to go to tax authorities. It is all the assessments are completed electronically by giving information in offices. We have from GST, e-invoicing has been introduced. Of late, I think we have seen there are scope of SFT has been enlarged, where the likes of where I come from, HSBC, so much information is being called for by the tax authorities. Transaction level information is being called, and which we have to give, and every year there is something or else which is being scope is being enlarged. Country by country reporting, of course, is required to be submitted. Plus, there is again enlarged scope of withholding tax and the TCS. Latest being, what all of us would have heard about this 194R, where now the TDS needs to be deducted on the benefits of perquisite given to the customers, and it is not only to a farmer, it is to everyone. Even if it is any you write off any dues from anyone, even the TDS needs to be deducted even on that. And plus, we have seen the compliance portal, which is there on the income tax now. These are some of the digital reforms which has been introduced, which I listed. I'm pretty sure there are many more, but what it indicates is the intention of the tax authorities to transform, to digitize the entire tax processes in India. And what's the benefit of this to them is essentially they get a lot of data. With the digital, they are getting several data from several institutions, like I said, from bank, from RBI, from SEBI, and whatnot. From everywhere they are getting the data, and they are doing mining of those data. They are carrying out the analysis of it, and thereafter carrying out detailed, in-depth audit of the taxpayers. Unlike what used to happen in past, there used to be standard, the assessment, routine assessment, what happened last year, let's look at this year and close the audit. It's no longer there. So quality audit is being conducted, intelligent questions are being raised. That's what the benefit they are getting. With that, what happens to the corporates basically if the tax authorities are geared up to with the digital and the other tax reforms, what are the challenges for us? The challenge, I guess, biggest is the data. Where do we get the data? There are so much data is being called for uh, from every one transaction level data. And for the large organizations like where I come from, there's not one single source of the data. There are multiple sources, multiple systems giving the data. How do you extract, how do you collate, how do you present it in the format which there is required? Plus, we have got a legacy systems, and I'm pretty sure all large organizations would have that. That's what I think, at least I keep on talking to my tax colleagues, and this is what I hear. Everyone has got legacy systems, which is inflexible. And very difficult to make changes in the system, which is running from many years, and very limited scope for changes in those. Even if it can be changed, it's a very time consuming. If it is time consuming, it's obviously is going to be there's going to be a lot of cost as well, which increases the budget. And even if someone, let's say, is able to implement those changes, it's not necessarily that's the end of it. Few years down the line, tax authorities again would change the requirement. So whatever we did, we have to again do it. So with that, let's come to the last main focus. What should we be doing it to implement these changes? I guess if there is a new requirement coming from the tax authorities, there are few areas which you have to focus. And there is no standard answer, honestly. I think it has to be dependent on case of each facts and the requirement in each case. But couple of areas that one can think of is to consider would be first, whether the new requirement can be automated. If it can be automated, whether system changes can be made, or if system changes can be made, whether it is worth making changes depending on what the cost, what the time is it takes. If system changes cannot be made, it can't be automated. Nowadays, there are so many the softwares or package or the available in the market, which can typically take your data, raw data, and that can produce the desired output, whichever shape and forms we need. So one needs to evaluate whether that makes sense, or doing it in-house automation that makes sense. The new reforms also, or new requirements also, may need to augment the resources, not necessarily in the tax team itself. It could be in finance, it could be in the operations who supports the tax. GST was the biggest example, right? When the GST came, I think each and every, the tax team was to be, especially the indirect tax team was to be revamped with the additional resources. And again, there was not only the tax team, it was also in the operation, because it is more of operational. So augmenting the resources is a one thing that needs to be considered whenever there is a new requirement, depending on what it is, how big it is. And the upscaling of the teams. I think if it is a tax team, yes, it is given that he would have a tax knowledge. But I guess nowadays the tax knowledge itself is not sufficient. There is a need to have some kind of understanding of the data, how to extract, how to use the data. With these few criteria, one needs to do the cost-benefit analysis, and then figure it out whether it makes sense to carry out this or look for the other option, which is in the next one. Is whether it makes sense to use, take a support from external service provider who can deliver the efficiencies through digital asset with the robust delivery centers. As I said, many cases it may not be possible to always change your systems. It may not be always possible to do the automation in-house, but yes, there are the external support services is available who can do it for us, and it could be more efficient than to do it in-house. But irrespective of that, I think in the new world of tax reforms, I guess there is a need to relook at it. And in fact, there are organizations already doing it, looking at the target operating model. There is a need to make more investment in your people, make a robust processes so that can be controlled, and needless to say that technology. Gone are those days, where the tax is a simple, non-technical process. There are so many technologies being used in the tax processes. With all these things, what is coming out is essentially apart from tax technical, of course, is the data management. How do we manage the data? As I said, there are multiple sources of the data, especially in the large organizations. Data can be coming from various systems, but since these are all transactional level data, be it a GST, be it SFT, be it a withholding tax, and it is going to various different authorities, and the data also goes to, let's say, the RBI and the other regulators. How do we ensure the data is matching? Okay, how do we ensure that there is no gap in data? Because as we know, the tax authorities indeed are analyzing data. They are looking at the gap in data. We would have heard a recent past, the GST authorities looking at the transfer pricing data, or the corporate tax authorities looking at the GST data. It's a very common. So there is a need to ensure that data what we have, there is single source data. There are not multiple, and it is reviewed, analyzed before it gets submitted. These are the few things. End of the day, is data is what I said. But yes, for the tax reform, this is what I would think. If someone needs to look at whether what should be cost to be incurred, these are the few areas that I would think is to be looked at. With that, I would end my presentation. Happy to take any question, if any.